All right. Hey, Julie.
Hey, Claire. Claire and I this morning had a vibrational, what would we call it? A cacophony of ideas and how we're going to jump into what we had thought today. We were going to do maybe sound and vibration, but then Claire had a cool experience last night. She was like, oh, let's maybe stay on afterwards and we can talk about it. I'm like, let's just talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, first of all, thank you for being a friend and a partner that we can talk things out when we don't necessarily agree. And I love where we ended up. We ended up with you be you, I'll be me, and it's perfect. And we don't need to control anyone else but ourselves.
That's right.
And I think that's a beautiful landing space. So, um, and thanks for being interested in my experience last night. So a friend of mine is kind of honing her offering, and her name is Dina, and she's super magical and has lots of gifts. But one of them is that she is able to guide people in a sort of like guided meditation way to their Akashic records. And at the same time, she's acting as a channel. Yes, please explain.
Claire, what is an Akashic record? I don't know. Let's pretend.
Yeah, so I'm not even, why is it called Akashic? Do you know?
So the Akash is the library of all information that is held in the multiverse of every experience that our energetic soul signature has gone through. And so it is the judgment day. Basically, it is the record keeper. So it's the record keeper.
Yeah.
Of everything.
And that comes from the whole concept of like energy is neither created nor destroyed. So every experience that we have sends this ripple effect out into the Akash, the universe, where it is stored. It doesn't die. It doesn't go away. So an Akashic reading is someone who is able to access records from your past incarnations. So this is largely based on a perspective that we have multiple lives and that our soul continues traveling through different bodies and different expressions and different incarnations. And yes, Julie.
Also, we tend to view our life as linear in regards to, I was this in a past life. So a broader way of looking at this would be that you're still in that. You're currently still having that experience, but where you're placing the eye of the needle on the record. Did we talk about this? So
no, give that vision.
So, all right. Once my guides were trying to explain to me this time and space thing and how it all exists at one time. And they tried various ways. And I'm like, no, I still don't get it. So they got super simple and they said, imagine a record. Like, back in the day, there were those black records and you put them on the record player and they had the spirals, right? So there's all those teeny tiny lines. So they were saying on this record, all of it exists. So imagine this record is, whatever, Earth, whatever, the multiverse. I don't know. It doesn't matter, but it all exists right there. Where you place the needle is the eye of attention. So where we place our energy is the experience, the lyric we're hearing. But the old lyrics that we already heard, they're still here. And the ones we haven't heard, they're also still here. So to bring that to the idea of an Akashic record reading, we give time to it, but you're still having that experience over there, except for what's happening now is there's a convergence. So it's all merging. So the karma or the lessons or losses that were incurred or occurred during all of this is now merging into you for cohesion, for healing. So that is the harmonic convergence. There's one in 87 that occurred that's different, but now it is occurring through us so that we become, so all those parts of you are fractals of your soul. There's a fractal of you over here. There's a fractal here. There's a fractal there. In order to come into unity, your personal community, which is Claire, which is all over, comes together to you and through you so that you can be the highest expression and fullest intact expression of your soul. Okay.
Yes, that was a beautiful explanation. Thank you. And so it's been really helpful to call it past lives, even though that is sometimes, that's how we see, that's how we've measured time, is linearly, but maybe it's just other lives, other expressions that are co-occurring right now.
You were at a different point on the needle at one point. Your focus was there. Now your focus is here. Okay.
Yeah. So, and this is something I've really been just thinking about. My friend Heather in yoga this morning shared this beautiful quote. I believe it was from Deepak Chopra, but something about how your past does not have power over your present. And it was perfect timing coming off of this Akashic reading I had last night, because I'm like, wait a minute, but my past is still impacting me. And I'm talking about past lives. And so that's been an interesting idea. The concept of, we're carrying the past in our DNA, we're carrying our ancestral wounds still, literally in our bodies, but also the past has no power over my power in the present to choose my experience.
Exactly. And that is, I feel like, the fine line of these Akashic record readings. I've gotten many past lives for people in readings and things like that. And it's so freaking interesting, right? It's fun. And everybody loves to hear about it. Like, who doesn't like to hear? You're going to tell me more about me? Please go on. Yeah. And then especially if there's a story that's like, oh yeah, he did me wrong. That happened in 12 lifetimes. So that is why I don't trust anyone. It's like, no. It is a way for us to somehow get a little bit derailed in all these stories that support our story now, right? Which is whatever. I'm like this with money because this last life I lost all my money, and then the one before that I was robbed blind, and so I'm just like this with money. The point of looking at that is so that it doesn't have power over you now, so that you're like, oh, I get it. These themes are coming to me, through me, for integration and healing.
Right. Yeah, and that's a beautiful way to use these past life records, is to bring awareness to the patterns that are still showing up now, not to be like, oh, I'm powerless over this pattern that keeps showing up. It's to empower, to maybe change that pattern or redirect that energy to be different. So yeah, and I've had past life readings before, and it was and they were beautiful, but it's super interesting. You can get past life readings with another person and see where you cross over, and that can be helpful. So for this specific one, Dina asked me, is there anything that you really want to, is there a question you want to ask? Is there something you'd like to zero in on? And as I've shared in previous episodes, I said, I have this sense, this knowing that I'm still carrying stuff in my body that has to do with my bodily expression, the way my body has been used, maybe my relationship with feeling nourished, or anything like that. Is there something from a past life, or 2 or 3, we came up with 3 or 4, that I can kind of pull out and look at and say, okay, this pattern goes beyond this lifetime. How can I free this up and lighten myself, because I'm still carrying it? You know, I think as long as we're unaware of it, as long as it's in our subconscious, we have a tendency to keep carrying it because we don't know what's there, you know?
So if we're going to think about frequency, which was a part of our topic today, if you imagine the Claires in these other incarnations that was struggling in some way, and I can't wait to hear about nourishment in your body and how it, expresses itself. If we think about energies or frequencies that support understanding or inner standing, right? We're in that time now. Claire's in that time now. So Claire has reached this point, like our planet has reached this point, where the frequencies that we're swimming in support Claire being able to look at this in a different way, to bring these fragmented parts and experiences to herself. And in these frequencies that we're swimming in, there's healing. There's healing.
And I definitely experienced that last night. So,
okay, tell me more.
Yeah, so Dina, she's so fun and playful, and made me feel super comfortable right away, because I did come up a little bit of judgment, just like, is this really gonna work? Is this just another cool, like, oh wow, I was a priestess and then whatever. So she guided me in the beginning. My eyes are closed. She's holding my hand. She's my guide here, so I'm trusting her. She walks me through this beautiful gateway covered in roses. And she started off, this was super interesting. She started off our session with like, are there roses in your life? What's your relationship with roses? And I was like, funny that you say that. We just bought 2 rose bushes about a month ago, planted them in the front yard. They're not doing well. I literally had a conversation with my mom over the weekend of like, Mom, what am I doing wrong with these roses? And they're everywhere in North Carolina. Like, I know they grow well here.
Right.
They're not. So I just cut them back yesterday. And she's like, oh, interesting. So she wove the fragrance of rose is like one of the highest frequencies. It's also associated with like angel guides. That's why grandmas love roses. Rose, This smells like rose. So she's weaving this rose imagery throughout the meditation, and we're walking into my kind of Akashic building. She's like, it's whatever you want it to look like. We're calling in guides, all of that. And then, she says something like, we ask for any past lives where Claire's body was, and I'm totally butchering this, but we ask for her highest good, in regards to her physical body. So then she was guided, she's super intuitive. So then she was guided to take me into a room, an offshoot in this temple where my inner child was. And I was a little resistant, which was a good awareness for me. There's still some inner child stuff there, but I'm so fucking sick of like inner child work. I don't know if you ever feel that way. It's like, oh God, I'm so sick of my stupid story. So sick of inner child. Yes.
For those of you who don't know what inner child work is, so things happen to us. Some people, it was just stuff like, every time you grabbed for an extra cookie, you were shamed and like, oh, do you really need that? Or like, oh, well, are you thinking about sharing with other people? Things happen. Some people, bigger things, but that little girl is carrying that, and that shapes who we are and how we see the world, and it is impacting us. And so if we're not able to go back to when we were children and start to understand what belief patterns are our own, what did we pick up from others, what do we want to hold on to, what do we want to let go, what is a call for healing. So inner child is asking the adult Claire, right, balanced Claire with an open heart and more intelligence than she had as a child, to go revisit that little girl in her, or there could be 20 of them holding, carrying pain. So continue.
Yeah, especially 0 to 7. There's massive imprints happening 0 to 7. So this came up and I noticed I still am like carrying some judgment of child Claire. So that's something I'm going to be sitting with. But then she had us, me and young Claire, open a book that was called My Beautiful Body. And so we open the book and she says, and she just calls in any Akashic record that would be of my highest good right now. And I got a visual of a lifetime that she did not get. And she channeled 3 different lives of mine that I did not get. So that was super interesting that we were both kind of there receiving the information. So I'll start with what she got. She got one lifetime where I was completely isolated and alone. And so I was starving, not physically, but I was starving for touch. I was starving for human connection. And that's what I really enjoy about Dina's reading, was that it wasn't like, and then you did this, and then you were this, and then, all the like demographics of this life. It was like, no, these are the themes of this life, because that to me is what matters now.
Right.
So that was one. And then as she's sharing, I'm getting awarenesses. And so when she shared that one, I was like, oh, I was in a position of power. So my power isolated me. And so that was a good acknowledgement for me, that I maybe in the past have used power in a way that separated me from the group, rather than what my mission is now, is not power, but leadership that brings me into the group, versus separate. So super helpful. And also gave me insight with my body. One of my core wounds is that, and this is where my inner child came in, was that I'm not going to have what I need. So that impacts the way I take in food, I take in alcohol, and whatever else. I'm not going to have what I need. So I need it all now. I need more now. And so having that root of like, oh, you were starved for, and I'm sure I was starved physically in some lifetime, right? So that was one. The second one was, I was a ballerina. As soon as she said that, I was like, yep, I already know I was a ballerina. I don't know that I've consciously, but when I dance, my ballerina comes out. It's not a technical ballet in any way, shape, or form, but I want to point my toes and I want to flourish my arms, and like, I was a ballerina for sure. That brings in all the body stuff, very strict diet. She said there was some digestive stuff, that the diet I was on, my body was not digesting well. And so in this life, I was a competitive gymnast from like 7 to 11. And it was practice 5 days a week, hardcore conditioning. We traveled almost every weekend for meets. I was fairly good. Loved my teammates. And that, when she shared that, I had this memory of, we're little girls, okay? And I'm not saying this is anyone's fault, whatever. We had these elastic bands that we had to wear around our bellies, our stomachs, and they were supposed to like remind us to suck in the gut, tuck under the pelvis for posture. And if we were slouching or our belly was hanging out, our coaches would come around and snap that band and smack our, and it was like, suck it in. Like, having a belly was unacceptable. Does that impact me now? It used to. I mean, now that I'm realizing this, yes, it used to. Now I love my belly. I used to hear the word belly and just like, hate that word. But now it's a little bit different. But that came up from that life. And then the third one was, okay, I'm going to back up here for a second. So one of Dina's other gifts is light language, which I'll just explain very quickly. So light codes, there are specific frequencies, and we talked about this in the sun episode, that we receive messages from the sun. What we mean by that is is essentially a light code, a frequency message carried in the light waves. So people who speak light language are receiving these messages, and then it comes out in basically sounds that come out of their mouth. It sounds like it might be a mix of a certain language, like it sounds kind of like a dialect of something, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you hear it. So I'm new to light language. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so light language also. So the universality of language, because we all speak different languages, and words now hold, first of all, a vibration, but oftentimes a mixed vibration. So you take the word news and noose. Okay, you take the word good morning, morning. So when light language comes through, it is not. It is a universal. It is a multi, because nobody knows really what they're saying, and
Right.
so there's a sound, and it's different for different people. But also, there's some light language. I've had stuff come through when I'm working with clients. There's no sound. It is literally
Yeah.
movements with my hands that I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing at all. But so that language can come through as a moving of energy, and then also vocal.
Mm.
So,
I love
so
that.
language is great, right? Because no one's going to be offended by it. No one's going to have resistance to it. You know, like when you're naming your child and you're like, oh, we were going to settle on Parker. And everyone's like, oh my God, like Parker over here. Ugh. All of a sudden you're just like, oh my God, you just ruined it.
Yeah.
So beautiful thing about light language is if you're open to it, it doesn't come with, like, our words come with so much other meaning. So okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And it is a little weird at first. It reminds me of like people who speak in tongues at church, which was always so like, oh, whoa, what is that? You know? But if you are open to it, and now I'm used to Dina's light language, it's so beautiful. And so I'm just kind of receiving this, whatever's coming through. And again, she's just a channel. This isn't coming from her. This is her being open to divine frequencies that are flowing through her for me. And that's why people who do this are in service for the highest good in the collective. It's so beautiful. So this third life that she got, she was like, I'm seeing the Celtic 3 circles that cross over each other. Does that mean anything to you? And I was like, no. And then she started receiving a light language, and she started to do it, and she was like coughing. She's like, ah, ah, like this. And I was like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I got to clear my throat. And then she starts, and it's this high pitched, like pixie. And she was like, you were a fairy.
Oh my God, I was going to say that. So when you started talking about your ballerina stuff, I started getting a message. No, she was a fairy, but I didn't want to interrupt your story with what I was receiving.
You're
so
right on.
I was going to interrupt that energy of you as the ballerina was related to you as a fairy.
Totally.
In a different lifetime. And I was like, well, I'm not going to interrupt, but hello.
Totally. And she was like, oh, you were a fairy priestess somewhere in Ireland. And I was like, and then as soon as she said fairy, I was like, yep. It's just another knowing, a sense of knowing in my body. And then I went and I wish I would have brought it up here, but for the Renaissance Fair, I made this ridiculous, it's not even ridiculous, but I spent a lot of money and time on it, flower crown with like elk antlers coming out, and everyone was like, how is this Renaissance? And I'm like, it's not, it doesn't fucking matter. I was a fairy princess for a Renaissance Fair.
Well, and I think about too the fairies, right? And the magic of the fairies, and you think about a ballerina and all that. There is power there, but it's like this ephemeral, flighty, lighter. And in this lifetime, you are so embodied, which, you know, it would seem that you may have chosen a more just what the word, it's not dense like thick, but literally to experience this density,
Yeah.
you know, that's so different from the energy of a fair, and a fair are is the sun, so you come from that light. But anyway, I love that. Okay, go ahead.
But it was crazy how her light language shifted. It was this almost like indigenous tribal sounding, and then it was like it was clearly a very different energy coming through. And the message, she was like, oh, she's here. So I was a very, I think a pretty powerful being in that lifetime, and she had a message for me, and the message was I need to be singing more, I need to be dancing more, and that my dance is my medicine. And I was like, I know this is true. And I start crying. I was like, I know this is true. Probably in 2020, it was actually during quarantine, I started doing this weird dance ceremony. Like I have a special room downstairs with all my weird shit. I call it the magic room. And I would just blast tunes when I would get home from teaching on Fridays. And I would just dance, and the dance kind of evolved. But I would just cry and cry and cry. And then I would wear myself out. I'd be all sweaty, like went ham on some dance moves, okay? And then I would just lay flat on my back in my magic room and cry, and this peace would wash over me. And that was kind of how I like purged the whole week at the end. And now it just keeps evolving. And I mentioned in a previous episode that I started getting messages as I'm dancing. So I keep my journal close by. And then Julie and I started the Durga Thursday dance parties, which have been just a total blast. And I've gone to some ecstatic dance events that have been amazing. But I
talk about the practicality of that too. So yes. So we're talking about vibration, right? And I mean, similarly, when I would say to my guides, probably around 2020, well, what can I do? We were in such difficult times as a collective and feeling not very empowered. And the message was dance and sing and be in joy. And so to literally, and I struggled to do it because I was like, I'm just going to dance alone. And they said, if you could only understand how far your vibration extends beyond, these walls. And so Claire, in this movement, she is literally shaking off stagnant vibrations. She's creating new energy through her body. I mean, you are creating a vortex of healing energy. And I mean, I'm just seeing you dancing and just seeing like little black chunks flying off you. Because when you raise your frequency in that way, the stuff that's of a lower vibration gotta go. It's not an energetic match anymore. So, yeah. I mean, if you want to get all, sciencey about it, that's what you were doing. You were creating, a higher frequency, and shit was flying off you, and you're healing and releasing.
Yes, absolutely. That's what it felt like. And now my dance has shifted into not just dance, but also this combination of I'll be dancing and I'll like hit a move that I feel almost therapeutic, like physical therapy, where I'm like, woof, something's releasing here, and I'll just stay there and do it over and over and over again. So my dance kind of shifts in and out. I do call it my physical therapy. And then I'll go back to dancing again, so it's been a deeply powerful healing modality for me. And so I was crying when Dina was sharing all that, and she's like, oh, and she also wants you to sing to your roses, and she wants you to sing to the water that you use to water your flowers.
Oh, that's so great.
I know. So I was like, I will, and I'll see how the rose bushes do. But then she's kind of she did this beautiful wrapped me in the violet flame. I'm visualizing all of this, and she's visualizing this for me, and so we're kind of creating this healing session for me. And she creates this visual of the violet flame, like burning all the way down that line to that life, and just freeing anything that I'm still carrying from that life. I felt lighter. I had eaten dinner maybe an hour and a half before, and for some reason it was sitting real heavy. It was just some vegetables for dinner. It wasn't a heavy dinner. It was not moving. And once she got the messages about the past lives, she was like, yeah, there's still some things that are preventing your metabolism from processing at its highest capability. So by the end of this session, it had moved. I felt totally lighter, you know. And then she asked me, do you have any questions before we exit your temple? And I was like, yeah, I wanted to bring up this life that I saw. And she was like, yes, please. And interestingly, it wasn't connected to like my digestion, which is where we had been. That's what she had received. But I saw myself dressed kind of like Jasmine from Aladdin, and my attention was drawn to my tiny stomach, and it was exposed. And in that life, I had been some sort of prostitute, but like royal prostitute of some sort. And I had taken on in my body, that was the way I was healing in that life, all the shit from all the men I'd been with. And I was transmuting it through my body, but a lot of that remained. And so I'm sharing this with Dina, and she's like, yes. And she's like, what's coming in right now? Let's do a little bit of womb clearing. So she had me just envision this beautiful flowering rose in my womb. I'm inviting in like innocence and play, and even erotic innocence of like, pleasure is good. I am free to experience pleasure. You know, all these beautiful messages that I'm sending to my womb space. And that is also, she got the message that's linked. Obviously, our solar plexus and our sacral are right here, right next to each other. So they're linked. And we did another violet flame, cooling flame that just came through and cleared out anything that remained. And I've done several womb clearings this life because of choices I made in this life. But this was also good just for past life stuff. And
so womb clearing, for those of you who don't know what that is, so energy, right? We're energetic beings. So some energy can get stuck in us. There are energetic remains from past relationships, trauma. And so it is a way to sort of clear out that which is not yours, what no longer serves you, was not the highest vibration in terms of a choice or a happenstance, and using the energy of the heart with the solar plexus. Okay, you use those energies together, and you send an energy through that space with loving forgiveness, with you take your personal power to release that and clear that and clean that out, because this is your temple, this is your vessel. Things happen in the temple gets defiled, shit happens, but as the keeper of your temple, you clear out that which no longer serves you and is not of your highest vibration. So people have all different ways of doing this. You can all kinds of things, a flower, sweeping it out, but you can do it. You can do it whatever way you think. You can lay in your bed and imagine water going through you, whatever calls to you. So, and it's beautiful when people are very skilled and this is their gift. It's awesome when you can receive it from someone else, but don't let that get in your way. Like, you can do this for yourself.
yeah.
Like anybody can channel, and anybody, you can do it. It's just a matter of being intentional and practicing that. So go clean your wombs out if you feel like it. Clear it out.
Yes. So that was interesting that that was the one that came up for me, that wanted my attention. And so then she again takes me by the hand, very gently walks me out, as I'm visualizing this, walks me out of my Akashic temple. We cross back through the portal and come back down into our bodies. And then as we kind of came out of it and we were just processing, she was like, another message I'm getting for you is to write new stories. And she said, when you write, you create, which we all do. Some of us maybe just are more inclined to use writing as a way to manifest our reality, but she encouraged me to write new stories. And I have started that. I haven't, there's one specific story that I know I'm writing as a way to heal. And, I believe that a lot of old myths and stories are coming up again in our lifetime to be rewritten in a new way that is more applicable to our current time. So, yeah, that's a story for another day. But I felt lighter. I slept amazingly. But there's still a lot for me to process, and writing is a really good way for me to do that. So keep at that.
Okay, that's so awesome. Sounds like it was super powerful and enjoyable at the same time, and nurturing and all the things.
Yes, it wasn't scary at all. Dina, like, just step by step, she was there. It was very gentle. Yeah, and her magic is super special.
Which is awesome. I'd love to meet her next time I'm out that way.
New
So,
York, so I've actually never met her in person. She's
you did it online. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the thing too, guys. Think about this. If you've ever had a specific interest in, I don't know, a country and you don't know why, like you just always been fascinated with like tea ceremonies in Japan, true story. Or, whatever. Since you were a very young child, you felt like you needed to go to the coast of Italy. Another true story. These are your recollections of past lives. There's nothing random. You're not, this isn't not random that you're just fascinated with Japanese tea ceremonies. So, and when I was a kid, I just loved to read about them. I was, no, that's a clue. That's a clue. And so, think about the things that you're just naturally, you don't know why you're so into it. That is offering you a little glimpse of something you brought in a memory that you're not consciously aware of into this lifetime. And if you start paying attention to those things, maybe writing them down, creating a little, like, I don't know, write it down. You will start to get more little nuggets of past lives, and you can begin to piece things together for yourself as well. I think part of what I try to do for sure when I'm doing anything with someone, I don't want them to think, only certain people can do these things. And so just if you're at all interested in opening your mind to the idea of past lives, maybe start there. Like, yeah, I've always really been into whatever it is. And it's like, all right, maybe write a story about it. Pretend you're writing a fiction. See where your mind goes. Mm-hmm. I mean, there could be some truth in that, which would be so much fun, right?
It would be a lot of fun. Yeah. Yeah. And you can even do automatic writing. Dina encouraged me to, now that she gave me this information that I have this fairy connection, she was like, maybe just call her into the room, close your eyes, and ask her questions and let her come through on the page as I'm just writing. That's from her. That's from me to me now. So there's a lot of different ways to play with this approach.
And there are books out there. If automatic writing, you're like, what is she even talking about? I mean, just get a good Google search books for, to encourage your own automatic writing experience or practice. I know several people who, were wanting to channel, right? And they're feeling very frustrated. And then when they picked up this practice of automatic writing, just allowing, take your brain out of the way, whatever you hear, you just write that down. And it's been really powerful for several people. So that's a super great suggestion, Claire, and easy to start. I sent automatic writing books to my niece, Megan. I think I sent a few out just for people, like, just read this. So that's something to try too, if you're like, what?
Definitely. And just to kind of wrap this all up to where we started, Julie and I have been creating this concept for retreats, but Julie received this beautiful message that don't call them retreats, call them returns. And so that's something that's still in the mix. Julie and I are working on and waiting for the right timing and the go ahead from the universe on that. But that, accessing Akashic records in that way has given a whole new meaning to the concept of return for me. It's calling back all of these fractal pieces of ourselves, and it creates unity within our bodies, within our souls, which is kind of how I see God and the universe. Like, you maybe heard the quote by like Alan Watts: "You are the universe experiencing itself. You are God experiencing itself." Well, we're the same way. In the same way that we're little fractals of God experiencing itself, all of our lives are little fractals of us experiencing ourselves in all the different ways that we want to play in these realms. So calling those pieces home, that's the ultimate return. So
Yes. That was a great way to sum it up. And I love hearing about it. It's so much fun to hear, I don't know, the ways in which other people are offering their, gifts. And then it's always fun to hear past lives. It is fun to hear past life stories. We're not kidding ourselves. It's fun. So even when I get messages, I've gotten them like, it's a delay, like Akashic records can really slow people down, and it's true kind of, but we're human and it's really fun and we love a really good story. So like, who doesn't like it? It's fun.
yes. Yep.
And you know what, Claire, when you were talking about your dancing and movement and all that, that's a light language too. I mean, the light is coming through you. And so, we can hear things like light language and think it only expresses itself in certain ways. It can come through people and sound. It can come through movement. Yep, the language of the sun, just that frequency of lightness, the lightness of being.
Beautiful. All right, friends. Well, thanks for listening to my story. And I'll actually post Dina's info if you're interested. Julie also does not specific past life readings, but they come up in your readings for people and your channelings.
If it's pertinent, it'll come up. Like if something's happening that's holding them back or something. But
yeah. So lots of different ways you can explore this for yourselves if you want.
Yay. Thanks for sharing your story, Claire. You know how much I love them.
You're welcome. Love y'all.
Bye.